Okay, so we move on to the next session, which is about the future being rewritten in the cloud. And we have the pleasure of having Chris Lee, who's a co-founder and partner for Future Now Ventures, calling in from Sydney. And to interview him, please welcome Louise Daly, Deputy CEO APAC for Accor. Louise?
Thanks very much, Suhoon, and I look forward to welcoming Chi soon to an Accor hotel soon. That's proud sponsors. Welcome, Chris. Chris, lovely to have you here from Melbourne, actually, where you're sort of coming out of a lockdown, right? A second wave in Melbourne.
Yeah, slowly. Yeah, slowly but surely, and definitely looking forward to getting things under control here in Melbourne, and hopefully opening up a little bit more, and eventually be able to meet a lot of you people in person. So it'd be,
exactly.
Be a nice change.
It's so lovely to have you here, Chris. A first timer to Web in Travel, and normally you'd be here with us in Marina Bay Sands, and so we look forward to hopefully welcoming you here next year. But I'm really grateful that you could join us tonight, your time today for us. And you know, I met you and your team earlier in the year in Sydney, and you know, something struck me about you. I mean, your colleagues are impressive as well. Some more talkative than others. I know they're listening right now. But Chris, you're a bit of a quiet achiever, and we have something in common. We're both CPAs. We've taken a little bit of a different path. But how does a CPA find themselves at the centre of you know, the business of cloud computing?
Yeah, so I've had a bit of a journey. So I started my career in the mid-90s as an assistant accountant for a telecommunications software development company, and started moving into, you know, more areas of information technology through management accounting roles and senior financial accounting roles in systems and network integration consulting companies. I worked for a smart card ticketing solution company, speech recognition software company, data centers. So I've worked across a lot of different IT sectors in my career, but the most crucial role, I think, was in my cloud journey was I worked for a company for Cloud Sherpas, where we were one of the leading Salesforce, Google and ServiceNow implementation partners, and that company was eventually acquired by a global systems integrator. So throughout my career, I've been very fortunate and, you know, been able to be involved in a lot of aspects of the finance function, from data entry in my early roles to operational finance and corporate services roles, and now raising capital for our fund, investing, mentoring and guiding the growth for cloud-based companies. So being exposed to all those functions really helped me understand what a business ticked, end to end, because you're involved in all those processes. Gave me a great understanding of, you know, how processes work within an organization and how technology actually made my life easier. So knowing how technology was used in our own business actually, you know, gave me an appreciation and an understanding of, you know, the products and services that the organizations I work with actually benefited their customers. In 2014, I founded a VC firm, Future Now Ventures, with our other founder, John Orrick, who you've met, who's a brilliant mind in that real technology space. He's a real guru. And Future Now, you know, we're all about investing, within the massive Microsoft ecosystem, you know, which has over 300,000 partners globally. We've built a really great relationship with Microsoft, where our core competency is to take early stage scale up companies and help them successfully navigate and be successful in the Microsoft ecosystem. So for mine, it's been a great journey, and being hands-on CPA has really helped me throughout my career.
Yeah, and you know, just moving on to cloud computing, because we talk about it as though it's a recent phenomenon, right? But with a bit of research, you'll find that it has its origins in the 1960s, right? So the question to me is, what on earth took so long for us to talk about cloud computing as such a phenomenon, and in terms of really where the future is heading?
Yeah, I think there's a few factors, but, you know, firstly, you think human behaviour, you know, there's always a fear in something new and not understanding, something, and being fearful of the new. And, I still believe a lot of people still don't really know what the cloud is and how it works. But if you have a look at what the cloud has done, it has been a disruptive in a lot of different areas. You have a look at IT departments. You no longer need a lot of engineers with in-house skills to look after the physical hardware. That's been a big change in IT organisation, the way it's structured and the skill sets. Another change is just the pure economic model of moving into the cloud. So you no longer have these big upfront capital investments, and that's moving to a more subscription-based model. So a lot of companies are needing to understand that their business process and the way they think about building and operating infrastructure has changed. And I think the other thing where I've seen a big change is internet and the leaps and bounds that we've made in bandwidth. How much bandwidth we have now, how robust it is, and the reliability to support the cloud applications. You probably remember the days, Louise, when you were dialing up and trying to wait for a signal to be even able to get onto the internet.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. I'm only 30, but that's no problem. I still remember a Kalamazoo, doing the wages on a Kalamazoo. But so let's have a look at some of the revenue projections for cloud. So Jerry, who's sitting behind this big screen, is going to put up a slide. So, starting in 2019, when we talk about cloud, probably those of us who are not technicians or very much familiar with the environment, we talk mostly about SaaS because we hear SaaS all the time, and software as a service, and maybe, platform as a service, because they're two of the larger areas of cloud. But you'll see here, that there's actually quite a lot of elements to the cloud environment. Desktop as a service, a relatively newcomer, growing very quickly, very small. But infrastructure as a service, business process as a service. First of all, the question, I guess, Chris, is: do you agree with the projections?
Yeah, generally, I think most of it is in line with my expectations. I suppose the only one that I thought may have a higher growth is management and security. But from what I've seen, the COVID effect was initially a lot of organisations put everything on hold. Just not technology. And so, that was one of the immediate impacts. But, at the same time, we also saw a lot of organisations, having adopted immediately collaboration tools like Zoom and WebEx and Teams. So, along with the associated increase in those collaboration tools, that's where I think you've seen a lot of increase in the desktop as a service, because that's really enabled, remote workforces. Sure. So I think, COVID has initially put a pause on a lot of things, but in the longer term, there's been a great spark, for organisations to really look at the way, they've started to digitise their business and re-engineer, the applications to adopt into the new world.
So, I was a bit surprised that 2020 had not increased as much, and as you pointed out, COVID sort of put a stop to a lot of the plans of organisations. But in terms of that growth trajectory, say into 2022, are those gains going to accrue only to the big players? And, what happens to everyone else?
Yeah, I think it's actually quite interesting, because the way that I view the big players is I actually see the big players as really enablers. If you have a look at all those major players, they have greater marketplaces and greater ecosystems actually built around them. So, by enabling those ecosystems around them, the big players will benefit. And Microsoft is a great example. They're really dependent on their 300,000 partners. 95% of their revenue comes from partners. So they really look at how they can support their partner network. So, as more successful their partners are, in turn, they will be successful as well. So, while the bigger players will benefit, certainly, the little ones will come off the back of what the bigger players are doing.
And is there a particular industry that you think is going to benefit more than another? From
an industry point of view, I think there's a lot of industries that will benefit. I see a lot of opportunity in what they're doing from a manufacturing and industry point of view. If you look at what's happening in Industry 4.0 with the adoption of the technology now, you've seen an estimated 3 years of digital transformation has happened in 6 months just out of necessity. So, you've had to look at, just the sheer, need to move and migrate risks with critical infrastructure that's been operating even when, teams can't be in a factory anymore.
Yeah. So do you think there's going to be a lot of hard to speak of people as being repurposed, but those IT departments that aren't going to be needed anymore, what happens with all of the in-house sort of IT resources? Do they move to cloud providers?
Yeah, you have a look at the amounts of money that's been going into those cloud providers and building those hyperscale infrastructures. You'll see a shift in some of those original skills. But if you have a look at the new generation of people that are coming through, I think you will see a shift in the skill sets moving forward. So people that have traditionally been looking at networking and infrastructure-based skill sets, they'll start moving into other areas of IT.
Yeah, and we see the biggest increases, if you like, coming from sort of infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, like doubling over the course of the next couple of years. Why is that specifically?
Yeah, I think although the perception is, cloud is still mainstream, there's still a lot of legacy infrastructure and applications out there. So it's going to take time for those to re-architect and implement those changes. I'm sure that you've seen a lot of legacy applications in the tourism industry. Even you see large Australian banks and governments here still migrating off Lotus Notes that they've been on for 30 years.
So I work for a French company, so. But sorry, I interrupted. Yeah.
So I think what COVID has done is, it's exposed a lot of those legacy systems. So if you have a look at some of the newer platforms, that's talked about right now. It's a real growth area for adoption in things like a low-code platforms where you see, applications that are being built, rather than customers going out and trying to buy off-the-shelf SaaS applications that may not even exist. We're also seeing a shift in some of the ecosystems, actually ISVs building on the platforms themselves rather than having to build from code up. And then when you think about it, a lot of these low-code platforms, they're still quite early. Microsoft's Power App platform, Amazon's Honeycode, they're still really relatively new offerings. So as businesses digitize their business, they'll start to look at leveraging those platforms and the ISVs built on them. And then in terms of infrastructure as a service, the hyperscale cloud vendors, they're just making it easier now for the network operations, the scalability, the adoption of DevOps for people to start consuming infrastructure as a service more easily than it was before.
And that's interesting because we had a panel yesterday, CC and Ross were on it, talking about where we might see ourselves in terms of product in 2025 or in 10 years' time. And there was discussion of low code or no code. I can't remember the term exactly, but it's almost, does that make all of us developers?
Yeah, so there's definitely a push for the citizen developer, but I think and it's going to make it a lot easier for people that either have industry knowledge or functional knowledge to help build applications to make their lives easier. And it's no different if you have a look at, even though the tool sets are new, you think about 20 or 30 years ago, you had the advent of Lotus Notes, databases and access databases. I see this as a more modern way of doing it. And I think a few industries will still have a lot of learnings from those days where you saw Lotus Notes databases popping up everywhere or access databases popping up. So there's going to be a bit of a shift with this new citizen developer mindset of how do I control that. So there's going to be a bit of a mixture of citizen and professional development going on in organizations. So
in terms of maybe more travel and hospitality, it's not the industry you're most familiar with, but as you say, you've crossed across many industries and your background has helped you understand so many industries. What would you say is, or a bit of advice for the hospitality industry, where do you actually see that the cloud has the biggest opportunity to impact travel?
Yeah, I think if you look at the travel industry, it's very heavily dependent on people. There's lots of interaction, and in reality, in post-COVID world, there's going to be less face-to-face contact and a greater emphasis on hygiene, safety standards, consistent delivery of service. So, you've got cloud technologies that are going to have big opportunity here in helping delivering consistency, upgrading of services such as remote check-ins, monitoring of safety, and consistency of the delivery. But you've also got in your sectors, you're going to have to find better ways to service your customers, and better ways of how do you get that personalised service at a high level when you have less face-to-face interaction. So looking at how we're going to effectively capture that data, how is it going to be more interoperable with all our other systems. So the cloud will help enable a lot of those systems.
So maybe more of an edit than a rewrite?
I think so. It's definitely more of an edit.
So you've talked a little bit about some of the sectors that you believe are going to sort of experience some of that disproportionate growth. But let me bring it back to Future Now Ventures, which you founded with the team in the last 12 months. So I have to warn you that, your relationship is very close with Microsoft, right? It's effectively accelerating independent software vendors onto the Microsoft platform. I just spoke with David Peller, who's in the room from AWS, a hospitality and travel expert from AWS. So I just have to be careful here. He may have some rotten fruit that he'd like to throw at me, but literally, where do you see now the opportunity for Future Now Ventures? What sort of areas are you looking at?
Yeah, I think it's a great time to be involved in industry, and we're seeing a lot of opportunities in different areas. So I think IoT is a really interesting space. You've got cybersecurity is going to become a big concern for a lot of organisations, and also seeing off the back of a lot of the innovation we've seen around remote collaboration. You'll see, okay, I've solved my collaboration, but how do I make my work practices more effective? But I think the internet connectivity is going to be a big thing. If you have a look at what IDC have predicted, there's going to be 41.6 billion devices connected to the internet by 2025. So the ability for remote services, there's going to be a lot of innovation in that area, and it's consistent with the Morgan Stanley report. And you're starting to see some of those already come to light. So you think of what's happening in the telehealth area. Even the tool sets that field service technicians have available to them now and being able to connect back to base to get more information is quite impressive. And then not to mention, with everything connected to the cloud, all the data that's being captured through all those transactions, and the benefits that you can be able to get from AI and machine learning from all that information.
It's really interesting you mentioned telehealth, because during the lockdown here in Singapore, which we call the circuit breaker, I tore a muscle and a tendon. And I guess I'm more comfortable with Australian rehabilitation maybe than with Singapore rehabilitation. There's not a lot of sporting accidents in Singapore, I guess. And to do that rehab, I heard someone laugh just then, but it was something, how do you tear a tendon during lockdown? As I said before, I'm 30, so I decided to do some burpees without warming up. But basically, that experience for telehealth, I did a telehealth consult with an Australian doctor, or Australian physio, sorry, and I was sent a link to download an app, and the app had all the exercises already planned out. And so we're using, the cloud is everywhere in our everyday life. We may not realise we're using it as a consumer, but of course, that enterprise adoption has enabled so much more now, even across border, right? and probably more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's one of the great things that when you think about, how technology is adopted, the ability for consumers to adopt is just making it a lot easier for businesses to start adopting that same technology in their own organisations.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the Gartner report just really quickly. So final question. The research VP said, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, there were a few initial hiccups, but cloud ultimately delivered exactly what it was supposed to do, responding to increased demand and providing elastic pay-as-you-go consumption models, right? So it all sounds wonderful and transactional and it worked really well. So we're all able to work from home, but what about innovation, right? So I was listening to a podcast with Sundar Pichai just last week, and he was saying even Google, it's an innovation company, hasn't figured out how to innovate without being together. What's your view on that?
Yeah, well, and I think, it's pretty consistent with some of the speakers I think you've heard, throughout the day. I think COVID has really demonstrated that it's possible to work effectively, from a remote environment, and it will provide more options as the way we work in the future. But facing challenging situations will spark, people to innovate and address these challenges regardless. But, it shows you that, we have the tools to be able to work remotely. But however, for me, we're human beings, and most people work better when they're together. So what won't change is, best innovation relies on teamwork, and it's how teamwork takes place that's changing, and decisively so in the 2020. But for me, people still need people. Yeah,
great. Well, hopefully we'll all have a part in that future. Jerry, can you put up just the second last slide? Just two very quick questions, Chris. There's two pictures, and I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind. This was a photo taken. I'll go back, Jerry. One on a beach in Sydney. What word comes to mind when you see that picture?
We've been in lockdown. I would say probably something I haven't seen for a while, but for me, it's a cloud.
Yeah, and the next one, Jerry. So this was on a flight I was on between Singapore and Delhi. So anything come to mind? What do you see?
Again, something I probably haven't seen for a while, but it's obviously a cloud, and that's the future. So.
Yeah. Chris, thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to you being here next year in person. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.